Welcome back to the latest in our series of business conversations. This is the piece with the Beatty Ladder where we bring in various different experts from different parts of the professional services fields and talk to them about some issues of the day and really get to know them a little bit better and find out what's going on. And today we're focusing on the legal sector. There's been a lot going on in the legal industry over the last few years and a lot of rises in boutiques and alternative legal providers. So today I'm delighted to be joined by Janey Haringa, who is the principal and founder of JH Law, a solo practice based in Hamilton here in New Zealand that's doing law a little bit differently and creating a big profile way beyond their means. So I'm really excited to talk to Janey today. So as we get started, Janey, just tell us a little about your career path so far and what led you to founding JH Law.
Oh, brilliant. Thank you, Ben. Lovely to be here. All right, JH Law. So, yes, the J and the H. I have to say it is my name, Janey Haringa. When I started the firm, I thought, I'd be a bit different and come up with a quirky, cool, soundbite name. But looking around, I thought I'd just stick to the norm. But beyond creating quite a typical law firm name, I like to think that I'm doing law a little bit differently. So without long story short, my family wanted me to be a doctor. A little bit cliche, yeah. I know. So I tried the whole biomedical science thing. I went to Auckland University, completed that, silently hated that. The labs, the test tubes, the harsh, but then afterwards I got into business. This is all pre-law. I worked as an investment analyst. Yeah, that was really cool stuff. I worked for venture capitalists who looked at putting money into startups, particularly in the health tech, med tech space. And I loved it. I met clever doctors, actual doctors, who wanted to be doctors. And engineers, and they were doing amazing things and needed funding to go to market. But I found that the lawyers we used at the time, well, I noticed they didn't all quite have that biomed science technical background. I thought, is there an opportunity here for me to go to law school and come back and service that same cool industry? So that is what I did. I moved down to Hamilton to be closer to family, had my husband, my baby, and have been there for the last 7 years.
So your own firm and a nice work-life balance.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah. Yeah, that's JH Law in a nutshell, really. Yeah.
Awesome. Awesome, Janey. So starting your own law firm, that's a really significant step. So what led you to take the plunge?
Right. Wow. I knew that all lawyers had to do some time with other firms before they could go out on their own. So I was fortunate to work with two really cool boutique firms in Hamilton. They were full service firms, mostly in the commercial and property space. Yep. So yeah, really good training ground. Fortunately, I've still got bridges with them. I was told to never burn bridges with anyone, absolutely. Not in New Zealand particularly. So still on good terms, and yeah, did 4 years working for those two firms, and then did stepping up and went out on my own.
But you could have, with those firms, no doubt, built your own practice within that firm, stayed with them.
Yes.
So there must have been something that said, deep down I want to have my own firm. What was that?
I see my joke to people that I'm a terrible employee.
I know the feeling.
Yeah. Well, I was just wondering, and I think it's because of that pre-investment analyst, business startup experience and training that I had. Because I would be working for these great firms and I'd say, hey guys, hey partners, why don't we do business a little bit differently? Why don't we try this and that? And I was, pretty much straight out of law school, and I've learnt that there's probably a bit of a hierarchy.
Just a little bit.
Just a little bit. And whereas in the business world, if you wanted to be CEO in 2 years and you can prove it through KPIs, go for gold. But law, there seems to be a more entrenched, got to do your time sort of thing. When I think I gave about 6 months notice at my last firm, and when I told them that I was leaving, they said, "Oh, Janey, we knew this day would come." We saw this coming. I gave notice, 6 months notice, and started JH Law. Yeah.
So burning desire to start your own.
I think so. Yeah. That in an entrepreneurial. Yeah, just did it.
Awesome. So there's never a good time to start a business, or maybe there is a good time to start a business, but you founded JH Law back in 2021?
Yes.
So you've been going for a couple of years now?
Couple of years.
Yeah, which means that you started in the fun and games of something called lockdowns, COVID, all that stuff. How did that impact what you did and how you started and how you got to where you are?
Oh, COVID. Yeah. The number of people that have said, why did you start your firm then? It was definitely quiet. COVID deterred me from networking, but I turned to social media.
Wow.
Yeah. And Zoom calls, definitely did a lot more of those. I remember I had this one, in the first couple of months of JH Law, I kept getting about 30% of my work from Canterbury, of all places. And that was because there was this one guy down there that just kept sending me work. And of course, all meetings were done over Zoom. And a lot of those clients were older and probably were a bit more initially hesitant to use Zoom. But once we started using it, it was so good to hear them say, this isn't too bad. This is quite easy.
So technology helped you get through those early stages?
Absolutely. Yeah.
So how much is tech and using legal tech and that stuff an important part of what you do at JH Law and how you work as a solopreneur?
Oh, really important. And there's still so much more I want to do with tech and leverage it, particularly with AI. Yeah. So, of course, it's just me at JH Law. So if I can automate as much as possible, precedence processes. So when I get a call from a client, I can funnel them through efficiently with all the letters of engagement and all the documents, and we can get things turned around quickly.
That's fantastic.
Yeah.
So the next thing that always interests me is there's always a lot of talk around traditional law firms and pricing and the billable hour and when's that going to change.
Yes.
And it's been a rhetoric that's been going on for probably over 2 decades now. And obviously you're doing something quite different. Yeah. But there's no real desire for law firms to change this kind of pricing method. It kind of works, clients understand it, and let's be honest, they make good profit. So with the rise of people like yourself and other alternative legal providers, is it going to change? Is there an appetite for change?
I believe so. Yeah, I believe so. Just purely through client feedback for me. I know most of the clients that come to JH Law, many of them, if they're coming from previous law firms, the topic of bill shock.
Yes.
Yeah, and bill shock is at the top of some of the things that they say to me. So I try to be as transparent and offer fee estimates up front as possible. I always coin it fee estimates rather than quotes, and I tell them straight away that 90% of the time, if it's a transaction that I've done 100 times before and I'm well familiar with, I can back that. I'm pretty confident we can stick to that fee estimate, but let's keep it as an estimate just in case something crazy happens at the end. Where the hourly rate for me would apply. And they understand that, and most importantly, we just stay in communication the whole way through when it comes to fees.
Absolutely, right. And clients need to have a contingency, much like you would if you were doing a home renovation or a build, right?
100%, yeah.
So the nature of what clients are looking for and how legal work is done, how small law firms, big law firms operate, is starting to change a little bit. The rise of AI, remote work and all these kind of things, how much of a factor is this going to have in the next 2 or 3 years? What are we going to see? 2-3
years. I'd probably say, depending on who you ask, some might say we're going to see huge transformation in 2-3 years, whereas others more entrenched in their ways might say, it'll still be the status quo and not much will change. But I think, yes, we'll see lots. AI's completely just shot off, I reckon, particularly with the ChatGPT.
Yes.
I won't lie, I've used that a few times to craft emails and things. But in terms of automating documents, I am currently on the search for, and I know there's solutions out there already, but to be able to automate a shareholders agreement or a sale and purchase letter of advice or something, and would be fantastic.
Yeah, look, and there's obviously stuff out there that's going to start doing that. But I guess it's where it's picking from and how accurate it is, because you're going to have to review it too much.
Yeah, it's
a
waste.
Save you time or?
Exactly, yeah. So So just, I guess I'm still doing my due diligence on all the solutions out there, and particularly I guess from a solopreneur, budgets probably aren't as high as big firms, so I have to be very selective of what money I do put forward to software, and can't just try this, try that.
Absolutely, it becomes business critical, but it's really, really heavy investment.
Yeah, absolutely.
So as a solo practice, and actually there's a lot of mid-tier, smaller practices out there, they've got to compete with the same attention, the same space as the bigger players with bigger marketing budgets, bigger presence. How do you, when you formed JH Law and what you're doing now, how did you form a strategy in your kind of marketing and business development to kind of cope with that and compete against those with bigger budgets?
Absolutely. So I didn't have much of a budget at all starting out. The thinking was social media, leverage social media as much as possible. I had a little bit of personal experience with Instagram, posting just pictures of our holidays and family things. So I had a little bit of practice there, but to be honest, I didn't think in the last 2 years my social media presence would grow as much as it did. Because when I first started, I was trying to look at what other law firms were doing, and there wasn't a lot of I didn't find a lot. I didn't find a lot. Sometimes I'd see those typical stock images of a house or a key. Yes. And I wondered back then, where are the people? What do the lawyers actually look like? So I thought, right, I'll start putting photos of myself and my lawyer lifestyle and in there, just to make a more personal approach. Yeah.
Absolutely, people buy from people. So what channels do you use? You mentioned Instagram there.
Yes, yeah.
Purely Instagram? Other social media channels?
Instagram's been my primary. I've got 3 core ones: Facebook, Instagram, and LinkedIn. Okay. Initially, Instagram was my breadwinner, but now LinkedIn is really creeping up. Facebook is still mostly family and friends and people I grew up with, and for me, I've always, and maybe this is business school talking, but they said target your audience. The content you produce, make sure you know who you're talking to, who you're directing comms to. So Facebook, friends and fam. Instagram has become a bit of everybody. And some people tell me, oh, aren't they just all teenagers on there? And I'm like, surprisingly not. A lot of SMEs on Instagram, and moving down from Auckland to the Waikato, I noticed the medium CEO age range. Bit younger, people with young kids or wanting kids, wanting that lifestyle block. So younger CEOs, younger businesses, lots of SMEs on Instagram, and LinkedIn are all my Auckland fam from back in the day, and lots of business individuals and investors and businesses too. So I used to produce content that I thought each of those groups wanted to hear, but now I pretty much just copy and paste the same content, thinking that actually those are real individuals looking, and they've all got personalities, and I use maybe a couple less emojis on LinkedIn, but it's
so less than the emojis on LinkedIn.
But I think I don't know, I think people are becoming more welcome of emojis on LinkedIn, so we'll see.
Awesome. Yeah. Really. Okay, so using social media is a really good tool for lawyers, even within big firms, to kind of build their profile and practices, right? Yes. But a lot of lawyers can be quite hesitant or reticent to put themselves out there and maybe expose themselves a little bit on social media. What's your advice to those people? How do they get over these kind of fears? What should they do?
I'll probably start with a common feedback I get from clients as a starting point. So often clients will say, hey Janey, we feel like we've been following you on social media for 6 months now, and it just so happens that we need a lawyer, and you came to top of mind. So that feedback I get a lot, and it kind of, for me, simply puts it, the clients, they are looking. Well, the consumers who aren't proposed clients, they're looking. They don't really know lawyers, and there is a little bit of a stigma that I only call a lawyer when I'm in trouble, and once the trouble's over, I never want to talk to them again. But if you can build a relationship with them on social media, then Fantastic. Particularly if you're like me and we want to build a long-term relationship with clients.
So you're kind of bringing your personality before, getting to know you a little bit beforehand, so actually they feel like they want to call you.
Rapport, yeah, absolutely, yeah.
Okay, so we know client feedback's really important. That's why you do it. But one of the hurdles to overcome is that fear. You know, have you ever felt scared to post something out there and what might happen?
Absolutely, absolutely. The number of times where I've thought, oh, I don't know if I want to post this, and it's not. I always try to avoid saying anything offensive or compare myself to other lawyers. I always avoid that.
Yep.
I try to position quite a neutral ground, and I stick disclaimers on. So the content itself is appropriate, but there are definitely times where I feel like, oh, I've never posted anything like this, and I don't think other people have either. But when I do post, pretty much every single time afterwards, I'm glad that I did. Yeah, because the engagement that I've had with viewers, great. Yeah.
And that's the interesting part, right? Just press go.
Yeah.
Because I guess if it didn't work and it wasn't engaging, no one would see it.
No one would see it. Great thing, you can edit posts.
Yep.
You can delete them if you really want to.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So give it a go?
Give it a go, absolutely. Yeah.
So moving beyond the social networking, digital networking, there's obviously networking itself, as in the purest sense of going out and meeting people. I noticed from your profile you're a member of lots of different industry organisations and bodies, and obviously you've gone out there and done networking. How has that been really helpful to you, and how does it benefit your clients being part of these associations and doing that networking?
Oh, the in-person one-to-ones, hugely beneficial. Across New Zealand, particularly I found in the Waikato, people really, they've got to see you to build trust with you. And while social media has been great, and it's more a sit alongside a business, social media helps me build relationships, but more as ancillary function. But most of my work definitely comes from referrals from people that have met me or worked with me. And every time I go to a Chamber of Commerce event, Waikato Women in Business, Institute of Directors, those meetings, I'll meet maybe a couple dozen people, and it'll just be quick, hello, my name is, you do this, I do this, exchange cards, cool, and let's set up a coffee later. And I'll do that 20 times.
Yes, absolutely. So the next part is, not try and do it in the networking thing, but make sure you get that second meeting, the real time to have a real conversation and build that rapport, right?
Absolutely, yeah. Coffees, lots of coffees. I got a wee slap on my hand from the accountant the other day.
Really?
For my entertainment expense for the year.
Wow.
Yeah, I didn't think it was that much. And I spoke to other law firm partners, and they said, we spend that too, so...
Having previously run budgets, I can kind of give you an idea what that might be off camera. But look, and it's an interesting part, right? How much you spend on entertainment, but they're the clients of the future.
Absolutely, yeah. I did an exercise of counting how many coffees and events for the first year of JH Law. Do you want to guess?
No, go on.
Okay, just over 300.
Wow.
Yeah.
Prolific.
Yeah, and I knew it was a lot. I didn't think it was that, but definitely good return, and I'm watching that return on time invested now.
So apart from a caffeine addiction, what you're seeing is that people are now starting to come back and get to know you more and have those second meetings and that initial burst of outreach really work for you?
Absolutely, yeah.
So Janey, you've built a successful business from the ground up, which is super impressive, but it can't all have been smooth sailing.
Definitely not.
Never is, right? So what lessons have you learned along the way that you can share with us?
The biggest lesson for me, if I was to give advice for anyone else thinking of going out, is don't run out of money.
Yeah.
I am so thankful that I had that business degree and work experience prior, because if I started JH Law with only ever having done law, I think I'd really struggle. Yeah, so before I launched JH Law, I utilised my MBA, did the business plan, forecasted, budgeted, did an expense list, so I knew exactly how much it was going to cost me and my predicted revenue as well. So when I launched JH Law, there hasn't really been any big surprises money-wise because I foresaw it. But for others, I mean, I've got a couple of contacts who did struggle to launch, and I think it was just because of that lack of business experience and planning.
Yeah, absolutely. So planning is really important. But what about when you're starting? You can't control market conditions, right? So you've got a plan.
Yes.
It's really good.
Yes.
And then you start 3 months later and realise it's very different. There's like an adjustment, right?
Yeah.
So how do you adjust those market conditions when you're starting out? Because obviously you're trying to build one model.
Yes.
And the market's telling you something different.
Oh, right. No, adaptability of your business plan. Yeah, it's got to be a living document. And you've, and I think it was one of those 101 things they drilled into us at business school was adapt with the market. If there's a COVID or a flood or something, or people prefer to talk to their accountants for legal advice rather than their lawyers, which does sometimes happen.
Really?
Wow. You've got to adapt. If people are downloading more contracts off the internet rather than going to a lawyer, you've got to adapt to that as well. So I love being a solopreneur because I feel like that gives me the ability to be a bit more flexible and adapt when required.
Really good business advice. Thank you, Janey. So our regular viewers will know that I always finish with the same question. And I always find it a bit of fun. I'm not sure if the person on the other end does quite so much, but it's really interesting for us to, to have the experts here that are technically proficient and know their stuff, but also have to go and win work. So what's your one tip in that BD sales environment to go out and actually, win new work, get new clients?
My top tip would be to be genuinely interested in the client and what they do, their business. Let them talk, ask them the questions, make them feel valued and heard. I do that with all my clients and I feel like it works. I guess I could tell them, oh, JH was great, I'm great, I've done all these great things, but I don't think that would work.
So, client-centric first,
client,
understand them.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah. Be their servant. It's a bit funny calling yourself a servant, but I think back in the olden days, at the end of the day, even though I'm a lawyer, I still consider myself a service provider. And it might be my, growing up, my family owned a tourism business. And they had all us kids welcoming customers, showing them where to go, just that hospitality part. And I think, that background has really helped me to, make customers feel loved. That whole, the customer's always right, that sort of mentality. Of course, as now I'm a lawyer, if they're breaching the law, I have to tell them.
So maybe not always right.
Maybe not always right, but client-centric focus.
And that's an interesting part about your background there, right? And maybe it's a thing that it's often been asked to me, should people, early on in their careers and stuff, take hospitality kind of tourism roles? Do you think it's a good idea?
Absolutely, yeah. Helps with the communication skills, soft skills. Yeah, absolutely.
Brilliant, great advice. Thanks, Janey. Awesome. Thank you so much, Janey, for sharing with us. It's been a really, really interesting interview. I've really enjoyed your answers today, as I'm sure everyone watching on our YouTube channel has as well. It's been a great conversation. We've learned an awful lot about AI and the future of law, how to build networks, the importance of social media for building your law firms for both small practices and actually larger firms, and how you can leverage that. So remember to like our video, subscribe to our channel. We'll be bringing more of these business conversations out to you throughout the year. All it leaves me to do is say goodbye and thanks, Janey.
Thank you.